Thank you for tuning in to Global Elite Media. This is the Patricia Mitchell Show. Let's talk. So the reason I haven't been on is because I had emergency health scare. And I actually went into the hospital February the 7th and actually just got out a few weeks ago from the rehab. So I came very close to death, very, very close, where they had even told my sister that I wasn't going to make it. Medically, I wasn't going to make it. So that's what I want to talk about today, death, when we leave this earth. When I was a little girl, I remember getting up. I don't remember how old I was. Might have been about 7, 8, 9, around that age. I don't even think I was 9. And I remember laying in the bed thinking that when we die, I wouldn't exist anymore. Where would Patricia go? I just had all these thoughts like that when I was small. And I remember getting up, going into my mom's room, just crying hysterically because I was telling her when I die, I'm not going to exist anymore. So I was very afraid of dying, very afraid of dying. So after I got older and got on the spiritual path, people were starting to have near-death experiences. So this one lady had an experience, and she wrote a book called Embraced by the Light. When I read that book, I just knew that everything she was saying was true. When you die, you live on, and just everything that she said. She was saying that when you pass on, like they have, wherever it is you go, they have water like a lake, but the lake was dancing in the rhythm of God. And she said there were flowers, and the flowers were dancing in the rhythm of God. Everything, wherever it is you go, is in sync with God's energy, and it's all doing a dance. I mean, literally, she said, doing this dance of God's energy. And then she went on to explain about reincarnation, what happens to us when we pass on, and just the steps by steps. We have to go in front of the, well, she didn't say the board of karma, but I knew it was the board of karma, to look over your life to see that you fulfill the mission that you had originally set out to do. So just everything, you can read the book if you want more details about what she said. But the bottom line was, I felt this in my spirit that what she said was correct. And then I no longer was afraid of dying. Was not afraid anymore. Now, when I just had this experience that I just had a few weeks ago, after that was over, I don't know, that fear came back. The fear came back about not necessarily where Patricia wouldn't exist, not things like that. Just afraid to make that initial transformation from the physical body to the spirit body, as you're dying on. That fear really did come back. I don't know why. Maybe it never was gone and it was just buried deep inside of me. But I know in my spirit that there's nothing to fear because I do know that you live on. My grandmother was a Muslim, so she didn't believe in, the Muslim belief is that when you die, you're in the ground and that's it. They don't even address the fact of what happens to your spirit. They just say, your body's in the ground. It turns into, goes back into the substance of the earth. So many percentages water. The rest is, the substance, the dirt. And that's it. If you ask them what happens to the spirit, I don't even think they don't even address that part. So anyway, my grandmother was so afraid of dying. So just before she had passed, 2 weeks before she died, she called me and said, "Oh my goodness, guess what?" And I said, "What?" She said, "I had a dream about Daddy," which was her husband, my grandfather. She said, "He came to me in a dream and he showed me where I'm going. She says, I'm not going in the ground. I'm going to a beautiful, beautiful place. So me knowing my grandmother, like she's a Muslim and she doesn't believe in that, I knew that my grandfather or somebody had in fact came to this lady in a dream and in fact showed her somewhere or where she was going, because I knew she just wouldn't say that to say that. It took away her fear, I guess, because she was so excited about passing at this point. 2 weeks later, she died. She went on and made her transition. So I think that my grandfather came to her to show her, you're not just going to go on the ground, you're going to go to a place. And then she went on and passed on. So now when my grandfather died, I don't remember, I forgot the year. Maybe it was 78. That's when he died, 1978. I was very close with my grandfather, extremely close with him. And actually, that was when my spiritual path began to start, because I wanted answers, as to where you do go when you die, what's happening and all that. My grandfather, even after he passed, he continued to manifest himself to me in dreams and things like that. So one day, I dreamt that I don't even know where I was. I was wherever you go when you die. And I was talking to him, but I was telling him about everything that was happening in the family. Like just everybody. Whatever had happened since he had died, I was telling him that. He looked at me and said, it's time for you to go now. And I said, oh, okay. He said, you have to go back. And the next thing I know, I was in my body. So I'm telling you these stories because I want to talk, even though I still had this fear, I don't think it's anything to fear when we pass on, because we are going to a better place. There's just too many people coming back and getting these stories. So now, Malcolm X, and I know we all know who Malcolm X is. His niece was my best friend. We went to school together, junior high school. We went to junior high school and elementary school together, and we just remained friends over the years. But she was my best friend. Her brother died, and she told me that. And now she was a Muslim, so remember that's Malcolm X's daughter. That's why I said who she was, so you'll know that she was a Muslim. So her belief was the same as my grandmother's. When you die, you're in the ground. That's it. So she told me that when her brother died, she said it wasn't like a dream, it was like a vision. And her brother took her around this place and showed her where he was. And she said she just seen people going on. It was like they were people, but she could walk through them. And she just seen them, so I guess they were spirits. And she just seen them going about their business, and everybody was doing different things. And he said to her, he didn't want to come back to Earth. So he let her know that he just didn't want to come back, and he was satisfied with where he was. So now she was like really shocked, because to her, she said, listen, this was not like a dream. This was like a vision, and it was so clear. Well, after he had died, not long after that, my mom had gone. So my sister and them we all were grieving her. I knew at this point, I was on the spiritual path, so I knew that when you grieve a person when they're dying, you're not allowing them to rest in peace. You're pulling their energy back to you. So I had been on the path long enough to know this. But my sister and them did not know this. So they were really grieving a lot. My mother came to me in a vision dream and said to me that she wants for me to tell them to stop grieving for her. She said it real firm, like, stop grieving for me. She says, I don't want to come back there. I like where I'm at. That's the way she was saying it, like really intense. So Then I said, what, who are you talking about? Or what are you, I thought she was talking about me. And I'm like, God, I'm trying not to, keep pulling her back. But then she went on to tell me, this is why I know it wasn't a dream. There, some of these stuff, when you be having, it's like a vision. She went on, I hadn't talked to my sisters, so I didn't know any of this. She went on to tell me how one of my sisters was sitting in the dark and her hair was coming out and how she was grieving. She went on to tell me about, I have 3 sisters. She went on to tell me about all 3 of them, what was happening in their life from them grieving. I knew none of this. So I called my middle sister and I was telling her. And she was just like holding the phone in shock because she knew I hadn't talked to the other 2. But yet what I was saying to her, they had already told her. So she said, well, Renee has gone into a depression and she is sitting in her room in the dark. So then she went on to tell me, my mother had said to me that she needed professional help, but she ended up not having to get that. She ended up working through her grief. But the point is that my mother still was able to come to me to tell me these things. So for people who think that your spirit just dies, or I don't know, because the spirit really can't die. It just lives on. It cannot die. Where is it going to die? What's it going to do? The physical body dies. The spirit lives on. And the fact that these people are coming back and explaining, showing people near-death experiences, showing them visions, showing them things like this is proof that the spirit never dies. Their spirit has passed on from this physical plane. It will go into wherever they're at, and they will prepare to reincarnate again in another body. And it is true, when you grieve for people who have passed on, you pull their energy back to you and you allow them not to be able to go forward. And I think this is very crucial because I think they need to teach this in the church. They definitely need to teach this in the church. That's not, because let me ask you something. Let me just say this, and I want you to think about what I'm saying. When you grieve for people that have passed, who are you really grieving for? Who are we grieving for? We are grieving for ourselves because we're not grieving for the people who have passed because they clearly have stated they don't want to come back here. So we're grieving for ourselves, and we're grieving because we are not going to see that person anymore. And so that's who we're grieving for. So my next question is, hey, is that selfish? Yes, it's very selfish, which caused us in the first place to be put in a pit. Like we used to be on this earth when we were created, and we used to be happy, and I'm going to do another video on that. We would be happy and everything was filled with love. And what caused us to go towards what you call the devil is our selfishness. And that is what's destroying our earth now, our selfishness. So even though it's hard, like if you don't really understand the death process, then you don't really understand that you're not grieving for them. You're grieving for yourself because you're not going to see them anymore. So now that's not going to stop you from grieving, but it will let you take a different perspective on your grieving, because that person has left, that person is gone in the spirit. And I'm telling you, if you was to have a dream or a vision, they're going to say, I don't want to come back there. I'm tired. I don't want to come back to earth. I like it where I am. And this was messages. That's why I gave you those examples, because these were like messages that people would give. There are some books that you could get on near-death experiences. And a lot of these near-death experiences, it was the same. They didn't want to come back. The lady who wrote the book Embraced by the Light, she went into critical depression when she did come back because she didn't want to come back. She said she threw herself at the feet of Jesus asking, please don't make me go back there. I don't want to go back. But Jesus had showed her, and the karma board showed her what it was she needed to accomplish, and so she had to go back. Her mission wasn't complete. She said she was in a depression for a few years after she even came back. So they don't want to come back. You want them to come back. So, all right, I have to end this tape, so I will start back regularly doing my videos. Have a great week. Bye.